Why is that? And you hit the nose on the head. Because of politics. Politics is the reason that plans sit on a table or library or a bench and don't get put into practice. It's politics. And yes, I agree with you more. Everybody has to get more involved with politics. Politics is the driving force. In my mind, politics is the economy down here. Policy is the power. And I don't know how many of you saw Michael Fox wrote a book that I'm sorry I did not read yet about optimism. He also had a television special based on his book. And the biggest thing I remember from it is when he said he went to this country in the mountains where everybody's happy, and he never felt more happy in his life. And he talked to the head of the country, and the head of the country said that is their country's goal, is happiness. And to be honest with you, I can't remember how they defined happiness, but I'm pretty sure it had something to do with positive relationships. And he said that they plan not bottom down, but bottom up. So they plan with the family involved, they plan at the school level, they plan at the community and neighborhood level, and up to each area until it's an entire country with the same goal of happiness defined in the same way and implemented throughout. And that's what we're missing here, and I'll tell you why. Because, and here's where I get very passionate and very vocal, is that the problem and the reason why planning is not happening the way it should is because our values of happiness is not defined by relationships, is not based on family values. As many people state family values, you see their lifestyle does not reflect it. What is defining happiness in our country is money, power, and fame. And that is the root of all of our problems. The youth today, fame, money, and power. And that's what's happening here in South Florida, and that is why beautiful plans don't happen in reality, because of politics based on money, fame, and power.
All right.
Well, I think the failure of politics is obviously going to be coming up in the November elections next year with hometown democracy on the ballot. Everybody knows that the hometown democracy will require that any land use plan amendment go to a referendum. With that will really kind of stymie changes in comprehensive plans, changes in land use. And it really comes from people feeling a lack of voice or their elected officials representing their interests and possibly not representing smart growth, sustainability, and all the good things that we've learned about in school over the years. What I believe might be the effect of hometown democracy, some of these dead town centers, like now Abacoa or some other locations, I think with hometown democracy it'll kind of stop, it'll limit some development in other parts of the state. It will drive up property values in existing places, and it will drive people back possibly to these dead town centers and possibly make them liven them up again. So I do strongly believe in the concept of polycentrism. You do see this also, like in, for example, in the Tokyo area. You do have, of course, Tokyo is huge. It's very dense metropolis, but then all around it you have smaller towns, smaller cities, of various densities and activities. So I think we'll see that build over time, and in some cases our systems will develop around it.
What was the question? How was this presentation?
Just sum up your thoughts on it.
I thought for the most part his presentation was spot on. And I'm not going to reiterate a lot of what he said, but essentially it's, our resources and our focus is fractured. And like I said, I'm not going to repeat what he said, but I mean that's true. We don't have any focus one example I have that I was talking to someone at one of the FEC meetings that they were doing, and he was talking about how they were trying to integrate tri-rail and do all these cross coordination. I'm like thinking to myself, how much money is this going to cost to have a bus network going all over the place, running tri-rail, and then trying to and we couldn't even get a half-cent increase on taxes 4 years ago to run the FEC, and they're trying to plan this huge vast array network. It was like, just focus on this on the FEC. Just keep your focus there, because you're never going to do it if you try to expand out. And essentially what it is they're trying not to tick anybody off. I hate to go back to the politics of it. They don't want to tick people off that are running tri-rail, but it's a drain on the resources from FEC, which has always made more sense because it goes through all the downtown. But they don't want to take anybody off. So what's going to happen is I ask them, well, when are they going to actually have it running? Well, we're hoping 60 years, but we're probably going to be 20 years. And I thought to myself, 20 years to have a transit system running on tracks that already goes through all the downtowns. You don't have to eminent domain anything. It's already there. But there's this gap in doing. We love the talk and we love the plan, but then when we get to the doing part, no one wants to stick their neck out and say, you know what, I'm going to put my flesh in this pot, and if it goes bad, I will take the blame. No one wants to do that. And that's the gap, is we need to do and not plan. But I thought that his presentation was spot on, and that's my 2 cents.
That kind of plays in the next question. Very
Okay.
good. Well, I noticed the common thread. Oh, wrap it up? Okay. Okay, well, I have to thank our panel. And thank you.
You weren't understood.
All right, thank you.
I think what we wanted to do was give some other people the opportunity to. So Dr. Prosperi basically gave us an idea about, I think, what the thoughts that we're having all about planning. And I would like to hear people, what do you think about it? So we've heard from you guys. So what else do you think? Tell us that we're wrong. Tell him that he's wrong. I'm not going to defend him. He's going to do it himself. Any comments? Any questions? Seth?
I think after seeing the presentation and looking at what we all are aware of currently, which is the sort of recession, economic failure, I think anyone who has gone through this and looked at sort of a view of what the bankers have been doing and what they've been up to and that sort of nonsense. And it seems like the financial institutions have failed to really focus on what an economy is, what wealth creation is. And I know that's long been where Dr. Prosperi has come from and what some of his background is in. And I really think that opportunity and that concept and that melding of planning really as the forum to really have the opportunity to look at what an economic driver is and what that means to a region. And knowing that when there's economic engines, then that has social implications, and that's maybe where more of the planning comes from that. But that opportunity or that concept, and I know there's some mention there of meeting objectives, and that's always the difficulty of knowing what the outcome is going to be versus focusing on the drivers. But you've got to start at that point. And so I think the time right now is right for someone to honestly begin reassessing what economics is and what an economy is. And I think the planners are probably far better positioned to do that, certainly, than the discredited bankers.
Wow.
I might be right for that.
All right. Well.
I certainly agree that I love the where we probably will go versus where we could go. And I think that we will probably, by necessity, move to a regional governance system that allows us to have a more comprehensive look at transportation and hopefully at land use, so they work a little better together. But I don't think we will ever be able to have a regional view of economic planning or economic development, because everybody wants to be the it place. Speaking from my perspective as an employee of the Downtown Development Authority in West Palm Beach, we are continually looking to position ourselves as a district better than downtown at the Gardens or Lake Worth, Delray, or Boca Raton. We always want to be it because we want to get the economic benefit and the economic incentive for our district, for our taxpayers and our constituents. And that will never stop. You know, Jupiter wanted Mott's Plank and Scripps, but so did everybody else. And the competition to be the it place for these economic opportunities is what drives economies, is what keeps people employed. And if we look at a regional perspective for this, South Florida as a region is a big draw, but we're all squabbling over these opportunities. And I don't see how that will change. So yes, I think we can get to a regional perspective on a lot of things, but economically we're still going to be this disjointed, squabbling bunch of some fragments.
Okay, lots of people. First,
Thank you. I'd like to just use two things that were talked about here today. One by Dr. David Prosperi. He has a very particular sense of humor to put things in our minds. But he talked about something that we probably missed the point. He talked about guts. And I also want to use something that Lorraine said, and I feel somehow ashamed that I didn't raise my hand when she asked who were from South Florida. We tend to believe that when someone asks us if we are from South Florida, it's where we came from. If we live here, we are from here. And that's probably the point that Lorraine wanted to make. And I want to use those as the pillars for a comment that I want to make. Perhaps what we need here is something that we are lacking in a regional level, is leadership. Leadership that can think beyond the next year election in downtown in Fort Lauderdale, or the next year election in Colorado Springs. Leadership that can serve as the driving force to bring those city and regional leaders to think beyond that next election, beyond that next regional plan or comprehensive plan, and think about the region as a plane or a ship in which you are all together. And if we don't do something really drastic about it, we are going to continue having a deteriorating standard of living here in South Florida the next 20 years, and then the next 30, and the next 50. So perhaps it's what we need is regional thinking leadership with guts to create that sense of place that Lorraine wanted us to instill today, and she wanted probably all of us to raise our hands. We are all from South Florida. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. As someone who has a degree from DeGrove 30 years ago before this school was created, and professionally been involved with regional associations or regional organizations, I'm fascinated by your idea with it. The fact that there has to be a perceived benefit, I think it's going to be one of the critical pieces that has to be overcome with it. There's a lot of exercises in social theory about people working together. They realize that if they work together, they can help benefit the total, but they've got to give up a little bit on their own to get to that point. I don't think at a political level is understood here that well. Something as simple as the South Florida Regional Planning Council 30 years ago used to cover a much larger territory. 30 years ago, Palm Beach pulled off to be the big, gorilla in that region. So they still kind of think of their own area separate from that. And even something as simple as right now, the decision by Barry University of what to do with the WXCL station. Will they allow it to go to, the station I used to watch as a kid, Channel 2 in Miami, or allow it to be something that goes off elsewhere? That congealing politically of South Florida, including Palm Beach, into that, needs a lot more attention